Thank you for listening to The Lawyer's Daughter. This is Jen Carroll, and this podcast does not have any video. I know I'm on YouTube, but that doesn't matter. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast here. Let's go get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Saturday, September 7th, day 60 in my countdown of 100 days on this campaign. I kind of like limiting things to 100 days. It's made it a little bit more exciting, don't you think? Although the election itself is very exciting now that we have this fresh energy and clear vision of what Kamala wants to do. It's so nice. I wanted to start today with a couple updates just because I was so passionate, to say the least, about Russian involvement in our politics. And Chris Krebs, I mentioned him the other day. He used to be head of CISA, which is the cybersecurity infrastructure that America's Cyber Defense Agency is what it is. He used to work, he was hired by Trump, he worked for Trump, and he was fired in 2020 because he said that there was no cyber intrusion into our elections. He just said the truth, and he was fired. I know that's shocking. But he has an update today from his point of view on what's going on with the Russian stuff, especially from a cyber perspective, which interests me because I worked in cybersecurity for so long. So here's what he had to say, and I just thought it would be interesting for you to hear because you probably don't hang out in this corner of the world very often where I hang out. But I think it's interesting because it has to do with our national security and it has to do with cyber, and that's something we all need to worry about. Every day, we need to be worried about cyber. Cyber being anything where you're sharing your data with a computer. And especially if you have the internet turned on. So here's what Chris had to say. He published this yesterday at 6:47 p.m. So this is brand new. And it is a thread, but I'll just read it really quickly. It's not a very long thread. He wants you to know that he is confident both Russia, China, and Iran have long-standing, well-formed, multifaceted plans to undermine American democracy, which includes this election. So I want you to hear that. Russia, China, and Iran. There's a good chance the DOJ has information on all of that, especially since they've busted up this, remember, it's all coming from that network, starts with a T, now I can't remember, the huge network that they busted early in the week in France. So it starts with a T. Why am I not remembering this? Anywho, that's where they have a lot of the conversations. Telegraph, that's what it was. Sorry, I knew it would come. Welcome to Gen X Senior Moment. Thank you for living through that with me. And now giggle because you have them too if you're a Gen Xer. If you're not, God love you. You'll get there. Don't worry. You just got to roll with it. All right. So here's what Chris said. So they got into the social media network. They were able to find out what was going on. They were able to see all these conversations, and it unlocked this huge investigation that they'd been working on already. Remember, it goes all the way back to the Mueller report. And it probably goes before that. If you're looking at some of these dates, they're 2014. So people have been watching this. I wish they would have been busting it up more, but we have had moments where this has been busted up. So Chris goes on to say what we're seeing with the alleged funding of Tenet Media. Tenet Media was the media company that was used as the funnel for moving all this Russian money through to all the social media people, all the influencers. And let's broadly call them influencers, meaning it could also be in your government, your leadership, etc. You can decide where you think this goes until we have facts. You get to decide in your mind. So knock yourself out. Okay, so what we're seeing with the alleged funding of Tenet Media by Russia are the sanctions against the doppelganger disinformation as service groups. Okay, so this is definitely an inside cyber kind of thing. We name everything in cyber something as a service. So you know how you can go try something for free and then they want you to pay later? That's called a SaaS model, subscribe as you go, subscribing to a service. And that is what he is. And by the way, if you don't know this, cyber criminals have set up these models in their cyber criminal businesses. In fact, I just recently worked on a paper where the cyber criminals are possibly even ahead of us in their ability to take ransomware, turn it into a product and sell that product, ransomware as a service. I just said that, ransomware as a service, sell that product to nefarious people. Don't worry, I'm still going to get to policies, but it's really, if you don't know about this, you should know about it. So any of those SaaS models out there, software as a service, and you subscribe to them, you usually get to try it and eat it for free and go, oh, I like that and I want more with more features, and then they get you to subscribe. It's a solid model. God knows how many subscriptions we all have out there right now. It's horrifying, but it's a good model. So what he's making fun of is doppelgangers, right? Fake influencers, and information as a service group. So he's essentially saying tenant media is just one of many disinformation as a service groups that are out there, simply mainstreams the larger statement of work. And he that's funny because in business we talk about statements of work, right? You probably have them too in what you do, but it's really like, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we want to do. So here's what he's saying is the larger plan by calling it the larger statement of work. Here's the plan. The DOJ included that's one reason perhaps this larger statement of work, what they're really trying to do is one reason perhaps why the DOJ included the translated strategy documents in their charging documents to hit at a broader undertaking. So he's suggesting that we're starting to see some of this strategy behind the Russian money peddling, and the messaging that they were trying to do. He's trying that strategy for how it was going to go, who the audiences were, what are the themes, who is going to do the specific talking. Like they had the largest content calendar you've ever seen, where they wanted to make sure the messages were consistent and hammered home racism, hate, divisions, all that sort of thing. Chris says his main takeaway right now is that these nefarious people have moved on from fake personas. Remember, there was a scandal of all the the European models whose images they had stolen and were using as fake personas on social media. They've moved on from fake personas, and instead they're trying to mimic and outright rent established and trusted personas. Congress. They've spent years studying our social and political dynamics, and they're attacking and exploiting our trusted relationships. This is from Chris. So this is important, right? So one of the things we have in America that we've usually known how to trust each other, and we've known who is trusted and who isn't, but that's all screwed up. I've been talking about trust forever, and I really think trust is going to become a commodity because you can't know what's trusted. So if you want to know what's trusted, remember when we first had when we were first online buyers, right in the 2000s, there was something called I got a endorsement. It was like a little tiny certification that said that the transactions you were conducting on this website were protected. They were encrypted, or they were protected through, at that point it was HTTPS, a secure HTTP site. So you never want to do business. You don't want to ever give anybody data on a HTTP. You want it to be an HTTPS. That means it's secured. So back in the day, we used to have a way to know what was trusted, but that's changed. So his point is, even our relationships now are sketch. Like, do you know if you're trusting the people that you trust? And I think generally in our small world, yes. But as you start to step out, I certainly have had that issue even as I'm doing this podcast. I try to stick with really good sources, central, well-known sources, middle of the road, if I can get it as moderate as possible. I know when I'm choosing to go to somebody who's not moderate. So I work on that pretty hard, but that's a lot of work. So his last point is that not every position taken by the influencer has to align with the Kremlin's agenda. That's actually the point. They're trying to mix in disinformation with regular information because then you don't know which end is up. And he's saying $10 million is chump change to reach a handful of people, to extend the reach. Sorry, he used short sentences, so I'm trying to explain where he's... he didn't take a lot of time to explain this, but he's saying that $10 million is chump change to have this kind of reach on key issues. So that is nothing for the Kremlin to spend, or for Putin to spend, or the oligarchs to spend. They spend that on breakfast. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but the point is they're just swimming in money over there. So this is not a problem for them. They're swimming in money they can't spend because of all the sanctions, but they are swimming in money. So Chris Krebs says, yeah, this is far from over. We also need to be measured by our response. The Department of Justice and other agencies' actions this week were incredibly helpful in pulling back the curtain on Russian info ops. And they timed the disruption at a time where it may be difficult for I'm sorry, be difficult for those actors to reconstitute their websites and build engagement. So yes, if you haven't been following this as closely as I have, because I'm a nerd, they have a lot of these places. As someone said this morning on Twitter, they have never seen websites and pages taken down so fast. That just so fast, all these influencers. There are names being pulled off of all kinds of things. Anybody who ever shared a beverage with Maria Butina is cleaning up their act right now. So there will be more investigations. This is a big deal that the DOJ did this now, so they disrupted a lot of this disinformation. And we're lucky that the reaction's been serious among the serious players on both sides. We still need to be careful of those who do not want to take this seriously. And he's speaking now of those who continue to support the Russians and try to divert our attention away from what's really going on. So I want I will link to this in the blog. It's going to be less discombobulating when you read it yourself, because he did really kind of cut to the chase and he spoke in a little bit of cyber talk. So I apologize for stumbling a bit there in trying to explain it, but I wanted to because I think it's important to come back to it. The second tweet I'm going to share with you, and it's linked in the blog, is from Mark Elias, and he's just I want to put this in your brain because you're going to start to see it. This is the Republicans' strategy for November. This is how they're going to win the election. They're going to suppress the vote. That's everything, through changing laws, through saying voters they're not really on the rolls, for just all the nonsense that's going on right now, and which is why all of us that do social media are reminding you to check your voter registration and make sure. And even if something goes wrong, remember, you get a provisional ballot. You're allowed to have a provisional ballot. So do not walk away without voting. Do not. They're going to also challenge voters and intimidate election workers. That's strategy number 2. So suppress the vote. Tell people not to come. Then when they do come, challenge them and intimidate them and bully the election workers for sure. They've rolled out a whole big thing for this. There's going to be people coming out of the walls on this one. The GOP has put together armies of people to F with our actual voting transactions on election day. And then, of course, our favorite thing they're going to do is refuse certification, which could backfire, by the way, because if they refuse certification in swing states, that might go very badly for them, especially if Mark Elias is on it. So there you go. And I'm just going to tell you one more little tweet about bias, because I thought this was interesting today. Media Matters did a study, and it's just it's like almost nothing except for what it reveals about what's going on with the media. In the study, top newspapers have been fixated on Biden's age for the past 5 months. So this is looking backwards. Somebody went ahead and you do this in rhetorical analysis a lot. I do this in rhetorical analysis a lot. You have like a rubric, a thing that lets you compare things to each other. And so you go, well, what's the opening statement? What's this? What's that? So they had this rubric that they went back and looked at and compared all these pieces of coverage based on the rubric. And in this case, they used time, which was really interesting. And here's what they found. Articles focused on both Biden or Trump's ages or mental acuities. This is a chart, so I'm going to describe it to you, but it's really easy to describe. There are 4 publications that they decided to look at: the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the LA Times, and USA Today. It's interesting because I've actually been going to USA Today a little more often, and here's what they found. Between January 15th through June, so that's what you need to know. It's January through June. They looked at these articles and they found the articles that focused on both Biden's or Trump's ages varied. So here we go. For the Washington Post, there were 22 articles on Biden's age. There were 17 articles on both of their ages. There were 4, Washington Post, 4 articles on Trump's age. 4. Let me tell you about the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal had 29 articles about Biden's age. 29. 10 about both of them, both men. Guess how many they had about Trump's age? Just about Trump's age. The Wall Street Journal. One. In the New York Times, hey, what's going on over at the Times? 25 articles about Biden, 5 articles about both men being old or having mental issues, 2 about Trump. 2. I can see how I couldn't even argue this point with my friends, because just in how hard these publications have been going after one candidate over the other about something that they were convinced that Biden's been hiding somewhere and like totally incompetent. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It was so weird to me. I'm just like, what are you talking about? He's not hiding. He's doing a job. Oh no, they were convinced. Well, here's why. At LA Times, luckily going west, it got better. But listen to this. In the LA Times, there were 16 articles about Biden, 4 about both of them. Do you know how many they did about Trump and his age and his mental acuity? 0 in 6 months. 0 articles in the LA Times. 0. 1 in the Journal, 1 in the New York, or 2 in the New York Times, and 4 in the Post. USA Today did 3. They did 1 on both and 5 on Biden. So it's still a little out of whack, but it's hugely not the same. So that's how it went. So what if we were to look at, let's see, articles focused on Biden or Trump's ages? Now you go right into the articles. So if you're going to go look at this from Biden versus Trump, in the Washington Post, they did 39 articles on Biden, 21 on Trump. The Wall Street Journal did 39 articles on Biden, 11 on Trump. You guys, these are like 2 to 1, 3 to 1. It's astronomical. The New York Times, 30 articles on Biden's incompetency, 7 on Trump. 20 in the LA Times, 4 for Trump. 6 in USA Today, 4 for Trump. And then you'll see that the bulk of when those articles landed, which is interesting over time, 56 of the articles about Biden hit in February. There were only 3 on Trump. 56 in the aggregate. So this is aggregating all of the 5 stories. You get 56 in February and 3 on Trump. You get 23 in March and 0 on Trump. You get 5 in April on Biden and 1 on Trump. I mean, essentially what you see over this, because they're so small, is you've got 9 articles about Trump over the course of 6 months here in the aggregate. And you have, I can't even do the math in my head because it's so many, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, over 100. It looks like over 100 on Joe Biden. So there's your media bias. And I just want to bring it up because it's a big deal. Okay, let's get on topic. Day 60, let's talk about Harris versus Trump, Social Security, Medicare, and healthcare. Here we go. These programs are a big deal. Social Security, Medicare, and healthcare are not just about numbers on a balance sheet. These are about helping millions of Americans be safe and have food and have access to some money, and they all paid into it. Let's be clear. If you're getting a Social Security check, you paid into it, or you lived with someone who paid into it as a life partner, it's a big deal. This is something we have, and the Republicans like to argue you paid into it, but that didn't mean it was into your account. And I'm like, well, okay, I know as I earned and paid, I was taking care of my grandma, then my mom, that's okay. But I damn well want somebody to take care of me because I've been paying it my whole life, like a lot. So it better be there for me. Medicare, Social Security, healthcare, these are fundamentals. And as we dig into this, we need to understand these decisions we make today will affect our life for a long time. I mean, I could say decades. I don't know if it lasts decades, but it really could have a lasting effect. Something like the Affordable Health Care Act, the Affordable Care Act, that was huge for me. It was a life changer for me. I, as an independent contractor, couldn't have insurance for years because I had migraine headaches and then I had a pregnancy. God forbid, look at these previous conditions. So this is a big deal. These aren't just policy points, they're lifelines. And for seniors, low-income families, and millions of who need medical care, what happens in this election will determine whether they have the support they need. So let's take a look. The GOP vision is to reform, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's more than that. Here's what I mean. The Republicans are clear. including Donald Trump. They want to overhaul Social Security, Medicare, and healthcare. They argue these programs are on an unsustainable path and need to reform to survive. But the goal that they have is to shift responsibility from the government to private companies and individuals. And this is going to be important. This is where you have to decide if a government's job is to act like a government or if the government's job is to act like a business. Because what comes next is we really have a divergence here. Project 2025 outlines an aggressive approach by proposing specific measures such as raising the retirement age, which is hilarious. I just have to say it's hilarious because I can't find work. Finding work over 60 has been the bane of my existence. It has been so hard. I get like a stomachache if I go to LinkedIn. It makes me sick because it kind of feels like it's a cult. And the cult has rules. And I can't be part of the cult right now. I'm too not like everybody else, I guess. So this is important because as they raise retirement age, that's a joke because you can't get hired. Privatizing aspects of Medicare. Listen to that. Privatize aspects of Medicare and reduce the government's role in healthcare. For example, Project 25 wants Medicare to adopt a voucher system, giving seniors a set amount of money to purchase private insurance rather than have the government directly manage their health care. I just need you to understand that the minute you tell every person to go fend for themselves, you lose all your power. It's exactly what they did to labor. They told labor, you can't have a union. You guys can't function as a group. You can't operate as a collective because if you operate as a collective, you have more power and then you have more power than my business. That's the same thing the Republicans want to do with this voucher system. Go ahead and put the people who can't log into a browser, don't know why their TV's not streaming possible, could not for the life of them figure out how to get a refill at their online pharmacy. Go have all those people now go fight the government because their voucher system doesn't work. I just can't. I cannot think of how to disempower some of the weakest people who are poor and don't have access to a computer. Just come on. So, give seniors a set amount of money to purchase private insurance rather than having the government directly manage their health care. This aligns with the Republican vision of shrinking government and having everything be a market-driven solution. Because markets are everything, don't you know? They don't give a damn about human beings. I do know that. And that's why I don't want my government to be a market-driven solution. This isn't just theory, though. It's policy in action. During his presidency, Trump signaled support for cutting Social Security benefits and even proposed implementing means testing. You remember that one. Are you poor enough to get this benefit? Are you really suffering enough? Let me give you this means test. You have enough means to buy food. Well, then you probably should have enough means to buy your insulin, right? If you're buying food and... wait a minute. Did you put soda in your basket? You get insulin and you put soda in your basket? Oh, no. Your means test. You just means test out of this. I know means is about income, but they're going to figure out other ways to make sure that you can't get the benefit because they don't want to pay for it. This will reduce benefits for wealthier individuals, which is a joke because wealthier individuals in this case are working stiffs. The Forbes advisor noted that Trump consistently emphasized cutting government spending as a solution to the national debt, focused on, and those are always social programs, never the defense, it's never defense. He's focusing on trimming benefits from fundamental social programs like Social Security and Medicare. And then Project 2025 goes one step further by creating a more efficient system that lowers costs and provides more individualized care if you're willing to fight for it. Do you know that there are people today, because of COVID, which I didn't realize that was such a complicating factor, and I should have, it was just being naive. There are a lot of people today that don't even have somebody to go to the hospital with them and to be their advocate when they get health care. And by the way, if you're getting health care without an advocate, you're nuts. Just nuts, especially if it has to do with any kind of crisis health care. So, but they want to make it more individualized because the way to keep people down is to not let them work together. The Democratic vision is to expand and protect. On the flip side, Kamala and the Democrats see these programs as essential. Their goal is to expand, not reduce. Harris has consistently emphasized the need to increase benefits for income retirees and seniors to ensure that Medicare covers more services like dental and vision for seniors. Oh my God. To provide dental and vision for seniors. Does that just not sound like so logical? And the people who need it so much? I mean, I love me some seniors, but they need some things. The Democrats' vision for healthcare: build on the Affordable Care Act and eventually move towards universal coverage through a public option that gives every American access to healthcare, which takes care of the states that won't implement the ACA so that those poor Americans can get access to the Affordable Care Act. They are Americans. They do pay taxes. They should have access. Their governors should not be blocking this crap. According to Forbes, Harris's focus on expanding Social Security stems from a deep belief in the program that provides economic security for millions of Americans. She wants to raise benefits and ensure that cost of living adjustments keep up with rising expenses. And I didn't really understand COLAs, the cost of living adjustments, until Mom was explaining it to me with her Social Security. They're pretty insignificant. I mean, they're really not very big, and they probably need to be bigger. And we probably need to look at how to balance the budget so we're not spending all our money on defense and potentially spending some of our money on some of these things to make these seniors' lives a little easier. And if you're thinking boomers, there's a lot of boomers out there who are really good people. So we need to take care of our seniors. They're important. I'm just going to say they're important. Another study reported that Harris's healthcare platform is going to lower out-of-pocket costs as well for seniors. So what does this mean for you and your family? If Project 2025 becomes a reality, the government's going to step back and all of these programs are going to be restructured with private companies playing larger roles. And we know how well insurance has done to make healthcare amazing. Can you imagine another middleman managing Social Security and Medicare? I mean, another private agencies? That we have insurance companies telling doctors they can't do procedures. That's not how this is supposed to work. The shift would mean fewer government protections and more reliance on the private sector. Republican push for privatization could result in Medicare shifting to a voucher system, and you will have to provide, and seniors will have to purchase private insurance. That's if the Republicans get their way and actually take action. Hopefully they won't be able to take action, but let's just not even let them get their way. On the other hand, under the Harris administration, you will not have anything scaled back. You'll have increases for low-income seniors and more services while trying to keep costs down. And part of that is negotiating with these you-know-whos who are padding costs. If you have the Medicare, I have to say Medicare's done a good job of doing some collective negotiating on our behalf. And that's how we're getting the lowered costs on insulin and things. The Medicare works as a political action committee. Well, not really, but a union, more like a union for our health and safety. That's good. That's good. Medicare is our union. I'm glad somebody's looking out for our healthcare needs and what we need to do to expand and take care of more people. That's good. That's what a government should do. Let's see. So I also threw into this mix one more thing, which was housing, because this is not a huge policy, but there's a real difference. So I'm going to talk to you for just a second about what this means. In housing, the way that the two candidates want to approach is really different. Kamala has pledged to tackle the affordable housing crisis head on by increasing federal investment in housing projects. So that's building more housing, which is excellent. That used to happen all the time. Housing, HUD, the Housing and Urban Development. That was a big thing. Let's bring it back. It worked. Let's strengthen renter protections. Oh my God, I'm going to have renters in a few minutes in Sacramento. I'm going to be a landowner. The thing is, I'm a bleeding heart landowner, so my renters have protections. In fact, I picked a property manager that was absolutely pro-renter protections, because I'm not going to jerk around somebody who's taking care of my home for me while I don't live there. So renter protections and expanding rental assistance programs. I think I couldn't find it here, but I think they're also planning to go after, or they're planning legislation to stop this corporate Oh yeah, remember, because business, that's just it. Go back to the private sector. Because business, huge business, big business is buying up available housing and renting it back to renters at exorbitant rates. So they're basically commanding and driving the housing market because they own too many properties. These corporate conglomerates own these big massive amounts of real estate. I mean, you can actually invest in them in the stock market. You can put your money into real estate investments where this is what they do. It used to be, it used to be different. It used to be like commercial real estate. It used to be actually real development, and these things would progress and eventually people would own the homes and it was like a good thing. I don't know what's going to happen with this mess, but I hope we get some legislation soon that prevents huge, massive places from buying up all the homes. I'm not going to name names because I didn't do my homework on that front. I should have. NPR reports the Harrison plan includes constructing 3 million new housing units over 4 years, and it focuses on addressing the severe shortage of affordable houses in the country. She also proposes, this one I love, a $25,000 down payment assistance program for first-time home buyers and here it is, and measures to curb investor-driven housing markets that push ordinary families out of the market. That's what I was just talking about, investor-driven housing. Okay, so in this case, I love this $25,000 down payment because I don't know about you guys and if you own a house or not, but the first house I bought crazy. I mean, literally, it was a wing and a prayer. I did not have a down payment at all. I actually bought a house that a man had died in. His wife still had the title and was supposed to be making the mortgage payments, but she was a foreign national that lived here with her husband. They were trying to get citizenship, but he died. He had a heart attack and died. So she transferred the title to me, and I loaned her $18,000. And she forfeited the loan, and I got to keep the title. That's how I bought my first place, guys. That's wacky. But that I had a bonus. I'd actually been working in sales, and I'd had a few bonuses, so I was saving up cash. But having the big down payment, because then they look at your earnings as well, but having the cash is key. And it makes the whole difference because you can afford the monthly payment. Sometimes a house payment's less than rent. It was certainly the case in Sacramento. The rent was much more expensive up there when Katie was renting than me putting her in a house. But again, I put her in a house because I thought we were having a murder trial. And I was trying to do the best I could to be efficient with spending because I needed to be up there. But that's it. I mean, that's that $25,000. It's a big deal, and I'm really excited about it. It's just going to change everything for people that are just so close, so close. And then, of course, Trump leans towards deregulation. His approach to housing is that the free market will decide, and the housing market will make more houses if there's more buyers, except that we've artificially screwed up the housing market because real buyers can't afford to buy the houses, and the corporations are buying them all with their investor-driven housing that it's so screwed up. So Trump basically has no plan. He oversaw, when he was president, he oversaw cuts to federal housing programs and promoted policies to loosen zoning regulations because he believes those are barriers to housing development. But get this, here's the most important thing. According to NPR, Trump has consistently framed low-income housing as a threat to suburban communities. So this is why he wants to reduce even further government's involvement in the housing market, because I'm sure he's going to say all his racist stuff right now about who deserves a house and where those people who don't deserve a house where they really should be living. So what's at stake? Really, it's a choice again against social programs or private sector. The government versus private sector. This one's like classic. This is a classic Democrat versus Republican stance. And I'm going to tell you, after 80 years of doing this same crap where the free markets will decide and trickle down economics and all this BS that's never worked, and having every Republican run up the deficit and every Democrat come in and set things right again, I just want to start off from the top here and finish the job. I just want Kamala to come in and get this stuff under control and settled down. Because I think Biden came in. The problem is Biden came in and had to put out fires. Kamala now is seen and was part of the fire putting out. Now she can start to lay down the foundation for us all to be able to move smoothly going forward. We cannot even handle the Republican chaos that will come in if these white Christian nationalists decide they want to run the country the way they want to run the country, with just men and everybody else under their leadership umbrella. I don't want it. And it's not good for any of us. And it's not good for our children, our seniors, all the people in between. Thank you for listening today. I'll be back tomorrow with some more policy issues, trying to wrap up before the big debate. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Make sure you subscribe and rate, and I'll be back with another episode really soon.